Welcome back to Chris Builds. I have something just a little different today. This is going to be more of a how-to. I'm going to go over how I change motorcycle tires by hand without a tire machine. There's an important caveat on this method. It does involve putting a little bit of force on the lip of the rim with tire levers, so I do not recommend this for magnesium or carbon fiber wheels. With a proper tire machine, you don't have to put any leverage whatsoever on the edge of the rim and risk snapping that lip off if it's a carbon fiber wheel or a magnesium wheel. So, for 17-inch cast aluminum wheels like this, it's a piece of cake. Let's get to it. Okay, so these are the tools that I use. First up, tire levers. I use Motion Pros. Something to protect the rim, old coolant bottles. Valve core tool, tire balancer, tape on weights, something to temporarily tape those weights on, and some lubricant. I use Honda polish, but you can use just about anything. Even Windex is fine. Alright, so to get started on most sport bikes, you need to take the brake calipers off. Mine are just temporarily installed for mock-up purposes. They were on hand tight, so just quickly spinning them off and getting it apart. Now pull the axle out. Mine requires a rather large hex head, which I have a special tool for. Follow your service manual, whatever you need. Most sport bikes, you have to jack it up high enough to get the front wheel out from under the fender. You don't have to take the brake rotors off, but it certainly makes it easier. In my case, I machined custom spacer plates to get these Ducati rotors to fit this Triumph front end, so I have to take it apart to install those anyway. Inevitably drop the axle into the dirt, as is standard. Okay, now you need some sort of drop cloth or moving blanket, whatever to protect the rim from the floor. All right, grab your tools. Remove the valve core. I use this Motion Pro valve core tool. Take a look at the rubber seal that's on the valve core. They do get damaged and go bad sometimes. Sometimes you just have to replace the whole valve core. Now we're going to break the bead. Use whatever method you have available to do this. I've seen everything from a hydraulic bead breaker to this manual tool to even just using a 2x4 and the weight of a car. There's a million ways to break the bead. That's a separate video entirely. Just kind of work the bead down into the dish of the rim with your hands. Lube up the tire. Okay, so I want to stop right here because this is probably the most important part of changing tires. The rim is shaped like a dish, and the tire is smaller than the rim. So try as hard as you might, the tire is never going to come off the rim unless part of the tire is pushed into the dish of the rim. So you can see here, I'm using my hands and my knees to force the opposite side that I'm going to be working on into the dish of the rim so that I can then use the tire levers on the opposite side to pull the lip of the tire up over the rim. So continue working that tire into the dish of the rim, grab your rim protectors, and I like to get the first 3 tire levers all just set up at once before you pull the tire over the rim. Most tire levers have one side for taking the tire on and one side for taking the tire off. So make sure you have the right side. One's a lot easier to work with. There we go. Okay, so once you pull up all 3 levers like that, take the middle one out, move it over, and grab another bite. Don't be in a hurry, take your time, take small bites, and once you get to this point, you can pull all your levers out and kind of just rip the tire off by hand. Now the opposite side is pretty much the same process. Make sure the edge of the tire is settled into the dish of the rim on the opposite side. Put in your tire levers. And pull the edge of the tire up over the rim. Once you get to a certain point, you can just stick your hands in there and just rip it off rather violently. Launch the tire across the shop. I rather hated that tire when I had this bike running, so I'm glad to see it gone. Right now is a really good time to clean up the rim. It's rare that you kind of have this access to the rim, so give it a good cleaning, check it for damage. Here, I found on this rim a pretty good smash from, looks like a curb or something. So I'm just gonna hit it with a little bit of Scotch-Brite in case it impacts how the tire seats on the rim. Okay, now we're ready to put the new tire on. Check the direction of rotation. Check it again. Check it one more time with the tire in front of you now. When you think you got it right, lube up the tire and try to force it onto the rim. But wait, check that rotation one more time. Okay, now you can usually force on the first bead by hand. Sometimes you get lucky and it pops right on. If you don't, sometimes you need levers at that point. Some tires have a balance dot. This one doesn't. In case that barcode is a balance dot, I'm just lining it up with the valve stem in case that is the light spot in the tire. I don't think this Michelin has a balance dot. All right, installation is pretty much reverse of removal. Lube everything up. Get your rim protectors in there. And start working the tire over the rim. Now remember, the tire is smaller than the rim, so the only way it's going to go on is if that opposite edge you're working on is in the dish of the rim. Just work it on bit by bit. Once you get to this last portion, you can kind of just breathe on it and it will slip over the rim. And there you go. Pull out all your rim protectors. Reinstall the valve core. Now we're ready to put the tire on the bead. I like to bounce it up and down like this just to get the tire kind of evenly distributed around the rim. Grab your air compressor. Now we're going to seat the tire on the edge of the rim. So the way we do that is by inflating it rapidly and as quickly as we can. You want to listen for 2 pops. There's 1. And there's 2. Now we know the tire is seated on the rim. I personally like to set the tire at operating pressure before I balance it. Probably doesn't matter, but just feels like good practice. All right, let's get started balancing. I like to use 2 car jack stands, and this is the Mark Prine's balancer. I've had it for years. If it still exists, I'll put a link in the description. The way it works is there's 2 cones that go into the bearings on the wheel. And then the balancer itself has 2 low friction bearings that sit on top of the jack stands just like this and allow the tire to rotate in a very low friction environment. I like to take this opportunity to pull the sticker off, not for balance reasons, more for safety. It's not the best thing to take off riding with, it's still on. Static balancing is pretty simple. With the wheel in a low friction environment like this, it kind of just sits there and naturally finds the heavy spot. The heavy spot will be at the very bottom and the light spot will be at the very top. So we let the tire just kind of settle where it naturally finds its equilibrium, and inevitably the light spot is going to be at the top. I take a piece of tape and mark the spot that's pointing straight up. That'll be the light spot. That's where we're going to want to attach our tape weights to try to balance out this rim. Continuing to use the masking tape, I attach test weights to the light spot and repeat the process until the tire is pretty happy to sit at any point in its rotation on the balancer. So tape on the weights, move the spot, let the tire find its natural heavy and light spot again, rinse and repeat until you find the right amount of weight where the tire is just kind of content to sit at any point in the rotation. Trying to get this perfect is a bit of an exercise in futility, and it doesn't have to be perfect. You can be quite a bit off with this method and the bike will still go down the road just fine. So now you'll see I'm getting it just about right. I can rotate the tire to any point and it was pretty happy to just sit there. So now I know how much weight I need. Use a little acetone to clean off a little spot for that weight to go. Peel and stick. Easy day. Double check your work. Looking pretty happy. That tire's good to go. Here's a quick time lapse of doing the rear tire in the third person, just so you can get a quick overview of the process again. Well, remember when I said that you should check the direction of rotation on the rim and the tire at least like 5 times? Well, it was at this moment that I realized I had f***ed up. So, now you get to watch me do it again really, really quickly.